Shalom Yasharallah. First and foremost, I want to say all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahashim, Rachah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of the house of David. Salutations to you brothers throughout the four corners of the earth, teaching the truth and righteousness and sincerity. To you Israelite foreigners, come back home to the truth. To those that passed on serving the Lord, the dead in Yahweh Shai shall arise first. To you sisters who believe, keep encouraging and supporting your brothers who are out here teaching this truth, and always commemorate the sister who washed Yahweh Shai feet when you read the scriptures. I try to get all that done within 30 seconds, by the way. If y'all ever see me rushing, not rushing, but just saying it a little faster. I want to read a scripture, then I want to talk about it as I drive for work. Romans 15:4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. That we, through patience and comfort of the scriptures, might have hope. So, why did I read that? Because I've always been a fan, I'm just going to say a fan, of history. I've always loved history, even when I was in the world, because it tells us how we got here, right? How, like, I was, and I'm gonna tell y'all my inspiration. This time it's not from social media, it's from YouTube. I don't know if some of you might consider YouTube social media. I don't. But I was watching a debate with Captain Tazaryak with some white guy. This is a smug cracker too, man. I don't fucking like people like that. It's funny when people debate, when they laugh and call each other stupid. That cracker kept calling him, oh, this is the dumbest person I've ever met. It's a lot. But he's calling him the dumbest person he's ever met. And, they just putting each other down. But, Tazaryak was going into how we got the Bible. And he said, the church fathers, so-called, put the Bible together. And he said the church fathers themselves did not know the Bible because they believed in certain things that were not accurate. So how does that relate to the point of reading history? Is you want to know things like that. And I'm gonna look it up for myself, but you want to know if the original people that brought us, put together the Bible, the canon, combined, combine the books and said these books belong in the Bible, these books don't. You kind of want to know, what did they see that we don't? Not to not believe in the Bible, but to be able to address it, because that's the purpose of history, is to be able to, part of it is to know what you're dealing with. Honestly, I'm glad that I'm part of a generation. Imagine if we was here another 20 years, right? 30 years, most high forbid. There would be people, there would be probably hardly anybody that was around in the original One West. I mean, right now there aren't people that were around in 1969, but it's kind of like a continuation, so the original founders of One West gave the truth to men, and a lot of those men are here today. I can't think of anybody that was around in 1969 that's here today, at least that was in the truth. Y'all could correct me if I'm wrong, but the truth of the matter is, we need to learn our history, because that's the way we know what we're dealing with now. Even when you watch something simple as football, right? If you look at the way teams strategize for each other, You might hear somebody say, oh, this offensive coordinator is very pass heavy. How do you know that? Because of his history. He might have ran a team in Tennessee, had a college football team, and then was a head coach somewhere else. Salak. I'll be right back.